unite and help, empowering our children and women, and to build a strong family, to build your integrity, giving hope, giving light, bringing peace to our world, and this is the real movement.
Hello friends, it's a joy to be with you again today. Today we're going to be looking into abuse, specifically sexual abuse, child abuse. I mean, these days you look around and you find out that it's so rampant. Children are being abused. I look here within my country, within the city where I live, and you know, it's like in the last 1, 2, 3 years, it's just been on the high. And I'm wondering, what can we do about this? How can we curb this situation? Even in other nations of the world, I found out that there's so many things, things that have not been heard of, before. And it's really particularly touching that this is mostly, geared or directed towards young people, towards children, towards minors. What can we do to protect them or to prevent them from sexual abuse? How can they, those who have been affected, how can they also overcome the effects of rape, the effects of, even long-term abuse? We know the Word of God says, train up a child and in a way that he should go. When he's old, he will not depart from it. So when did sexual abuse and all of that become part of the training? No. So we need to protect children, especially from perpetrators of these acts. We need to, educate them also to know what is accepted and what is not accepted. How do they protect themselves? And also, how do they overcome the traumas for those who have, been affected by it? I'm going to be speaking with a guest, someone who is really experienced in helping families, in helping parents, and also helping young people that have been abused, and people who also just want to bring up their children, people who want to know and understand what really is going on in the world concerning sexual abuse, so that we can have healthy families, we can have a healthy, environment. What is abuse really? Abuse is anything that could cause harm or danger, to a child. Because we're talking about abuse now in children, in young people. It could also mean anything that attempts to demean a child, to force a child to do certain things without explaining why. To touch on a child's self-esteem, that also is abuse. We have different types of abuse. We have physical abuse. This happens when, for example, a child is beaten at any slightest offense, for mistakes made, beaten, or beaten out of anger. Physical neglect is also a form of abuse. This occurs when a child is not taught how to do things appropriately, how to do things properly. A child is neglected. You might feel that, oh, no, I'm not neglecting my child, I'm always there. But have you really taught this child certain skills, certain things in life that would empower, the child in future? That is also neglect. You find out that some children at certain ages, maybe a 12-year-old boy can't tie his shoelaces. Those are signs of neglect, because he ought to have been taught at maybe age 6 or 7 how to do it. We assume sometimes that they will just know what to do, as they grow up. So we must not neglect them. There's also emotional abuse, internal damage, resulting from the way that they feel about themselves. Emotional abuse, it could come through words, it could come through manipulation, toying with their emotions many times in ways that we're not very conscious about. But I believe that in this episode, we'll be able to look, at all of that. When a child is sexually abused, definitely the child's emotions cannot be the same. The child's life cannot be the same. The child has a different perspective in life, and we believe that even as we look at this topic, parents, caregivers, stakeholders, all of us that are responsible for the upbringing, of young children, of children and young people, we'll be able to have an understanding and we'll be better prepared. We will be more vigilant, about what is going on. We will be able to help them. We'll be able to protect them and keep them far away from offenders. So who can abuse sexually? Who can abuse? There might be young children that are listening to this even right now. Your friend, neighbors, teachers, step-parents, even parents. We've had situations where, father, rapes his daughter. It is really bizarre. It's not even supposed to be, but this is happening. Cousins, house helps, even religious leaders. Yeah. Strangers. But many times we have found out that it happens even through those closest to these children. Because many of us parents feel that, okay, Uncle so-and-so is with my daughter, is with my son. Because boys too get abused, not just girls. So he's in the safest of hands. But be careful. We need to be careful, especially when the child begins to, maybe complain, not wanting to stay with this auntie or stay with that uncle or go to that answer. You need to look at it carefully. Don't think that the child is just being stubborn. Sometimes they can't even express what is going on. Sometimes they have been threatened by the abuser. Some children have been threatened that if you tell anyone, you will die. And no child wants to die. So they're afraid. They keep these things. And because they keep it to themselves, it goes on and on and on. Many times children that have been abused before the parents discover, it's not usually the first time. It's when it has happened, repeatedly. But I'm trusting that will not be our portion. In Jesus' name. And if it has happened already, I believe that even through listening to the program as we go on into the interactive question and answer session and interactive session, more light will be thrown, onto how we can overcome. I want us to know that if this has happened to you or happened to your child, there is help for you. You can see there are psychologists that are trained, there are counselors that are trained to help out, even in churches, you have pastors, you have leaders, but some people have really taken it upon themselves, especially the guests that we'll be interacting with in a short while from now, have taken it upon themselves to make this a career, to make this their industry, to make this their, place of work, the place where they're just going to be there and be on the cutting edge in bringing tools that can help parents, that can help young people so that the society can be a better place. What are the causes of sexual abuse? Sometimes greed on the side of a young guy or young lady, not in all cases, but we have to look at, explore all the opportunities. And I'm not talking about very, very little children now, but you have children that have already come of age, children that are already teenagers. Even if a 12-year-old as well. We should teach our children to be content with what we have provided for them. And if there's anything they need that they don't have, they should come to us as parents, you know. They shouldn't go with strangers. They shouldn't go about, you know, receiving expensive things from someone who their parent knows nothing about the gift. Yes, they can receive gifts from uncles, but the parents, if an uncle and aunt, you know, says to a child, to a young person, don't let your mom know about this gift, then that child should sense something. The child should not be excited that, wow, this is just between me and this person. You know, the child should wonder, why should my mom not know? Welcome, viewers. Today we're looking into the issue of abuse, sexual abuse in particular. Have you noticed, you know, in recent times, at least in the past 1, 2, 3 years, that, you know, sexual abuse has been, you know, on the high, especially towards children all over the world, in our communities. We hear things we've never heard of before, you know, just wild things. Why towards children? Why are children being abused sexually? What can we do to stop it, to prevent it? Or for those who have been affected, what do we do to overcome it? How can we as parents and caregivers, you know, protect these children and, you know, prepare them for the onslaught of this ill in the society? And so today we're going to be looking into this, and I have with me Praise Fowowe from the Institute of Family Life and Sex Education. Welcome, Praise.
It's a pleasure being here.
Thank you. I mean, Praise is an authority in that area. He counsels people. He has a school. He educates parents. You know, he helps a lot of young people, you know, in the area of sex, because you believe that we should have a sexually pure generation. Right. Okay, so we have a number of questions here. We'll start from there, and then we would, you know, trust that the viewers at this time will be richly blessed. We pray that you will learn something that will help you to help your young one and to help the family. A question says, I'm divorced with 3 teenage daughters. Even though I'm a bit conservative, my siblings, all males, are so westernized or so liberal that at any time they come visiting, they hug my daughters tightly and give them a peck on the cheeks or forehead. And my issue is that I want to put a stop to this without hurting my siblings, because they are all I have got after my troubled marriage. So do you think she's going overboard? I mean, a hug, peck?
Well, it's looking like she needs to strike a balance, because I hear that all the time. People don't want to offend their siblings, then they end up displeasing their children. Reality is, I believe that every home must have a structure, you know, the way they want the home to run. And someone that is coming from outside shouldn't upset that structure. So, for example, you must have a family vision, you must have your core values and everything. So when you have your values set and your vision, then when someone is coming in, the first thing you want to do is to educate them on, hey, this is what works here. Yeah. Now, your people are coming from, our siblings are coming from the Western world. You know, you don't know what they've been exposed to. You don't know. Life over there is different from life in here. What goes over there may not be what will go in here. I mean, for example, if you, the last time I traveled, I was interacting with children, and, you know, they were talking about, you know, the gay issue, and they were children. And they didn't say it was homosexual. They didn't say it was gay. They say it was, they call it bump fun. Now they talked about oral sex, and they say it was mouth fun. Now, so if you're having your child interact with people from, you know, those sides, and you don't, you know, draw a line, then you're going to have a problem. What she needs to do is to call them aside to say, hey, I'm not saying what you're doing is wrong. Neither am I insinuating that something is about to happen. However, there's what is called good touch, bad touch, confusing touch, you know, for the sake of, and usually I say to people, you know, there are things parents shouldn't even do, not because you're going to abuse or molest your child, or not because your siblings are going to molest your child, but if your child sees them do it, she's not going to have, I mean, any problem accepting, I mean, outsiders to do the same. For example, teachers will tell you that children whose parents kiss them, by the time they get to school, they try to kiss their classmates, you know, and I mean, you would say, what's wrong in a parent kissing the child on the lips? Usually I advise kiss them on the cheek, because once you begin to do it on the lips, they'll go to school and they think it's a normal thing. Children learn first from what they see you do than what you say. So what she needs to do is to call them aside and educate them that, hey, child sexual abuse is real in this part of the world, and you know, there's a way I'm training this child, and there are things I will not want you to do. There are other ways to show affection, you know, and I'm sure they shouldn't have a problem because they're matured. They will be able to take it. So we need to protect that child much more than the siblings.
Wow, that is so true. Wow, that's important. They said you need to have a family vision. You need to establish the way you want things to run in your home. Okay, this one says, my husband is of the view that male housekeepers are more hardworking than female ones. But I have a reservation about this because of the ugly trend in some homes. I have 2 daughters and a son. Am I being paranoid or necessarily fearful? You see, for our viewers in this part of the world, we are based here in Lagos, Nigeria. It is not uncommon to have domestic helps in the home. I know this is not common in the US or even in the UK. In the UK, yeah, people do have. But, but here in our part of the world, it's very common to have domestic helps because people are in need of jobs. The jobs are not there, and people are willing to serve other families for a pay. But I know, for example, it's not very common in the US. But from here in Lagos, Nigeria, it's very common to have a domestic help. So this question, you know, is saying that my husband would want us to have a male helper at home, but she's saying she would rather maybe a female one. So what is your take? Well, I mean, feel free. I
don't see, as you have, you know, male who will molest female, you also have female who will molest male. I'm not about the gender. What I'm particularly about is, why do you need a house help? That's the first question I always like to ask. Sure. Because a lot of people in this part of the world, I mean, we're in Lagos, what they don't understand is that most of the house helps they get are children who were not properly brought up. Many of them have been victims of abuse. Unfortunately, many of them come into those homes, they are overused, they overwork. You know, your children go to school, they stay at home, and you think they're happy. You know, so you don't treat them right, you expect them to treat your children well. It doesn't work. Now, I'm of the opinion that a lot of people who can afford house helps in Africa, if they cross over, like you mentioned, to the US and the UK, they won't be able to afford. They take house helps in Nigeria, for example, because we think it's cheap. Reality is, why do you need a house help? You don't know where this child is coming from. You don't know what this child is going to bring into your home. Are there other ways? And how you will know that people may not really need a house help is the moment, I always say to parents that if all the house helps in Nigeria, for example, have a conference and they say minimum wage must be 150,000 naira, you realize that people will get creative and they will look for other means of it. And I also
like
believe
$1,000.
that if husbands in this part of the world will commit to assist their wives with chores at home, most homes may not necessarily need a house help. I mean, I've never used a house help because I support my wife at home.
Wow.
Now, what we may need could be housekeepers. People who come, clean, and they go. You know, because you don't know what these house helps, I mean, we call them necessary evil. You know, they come with their own kinds of problems, and at the end of the day, you don't even know when they begin to interact with your, you know, so they, and it comes back again to the structure of the home. There has to be an agreement. Why? We need to be able to sit down and try to say, why do we need a house help? Do we really need one? Are there other people who can assist with the things? What are the basic things we want a house help to do? If it is doing laundry and all those kind of things, can we, you know, devise creatively, you know, go? Because, I mean, I tell them, for example, that, I mean, I won't take a house help because I was a victim of bringing people to come and live with you, you know, and I wouldn't try it. So I'll go the extra mile. So if husbands will commit to maybe, I mean, you know, in this part of the world, people think it's only a woman that should go to the kitchen. If a man will commit to assist, you know, maybe while the wife is busy in the kitchen, you commit to maybe sweep the floor or help the children with their assignment, you just realize that you don't really need a house help. However, in case you will need, people need to understand in this part of the world that you can't get a house help in Nigeria that is less than 18. It's a criminal offense. Most people don't know. You know, it's child abuse in itself. And that's the thing. You know, you are living in a house. I mean, a house help to oversee another infant or whatever, you know, who doesn't have any experience. And for crying out loud, you know, I interviewed a house help that someone wanted to hire years ago. And I asked the girl, this infant you want to take care of, if she begins to cry, what are you going to do? She said, I'll beat the child. I said, okay, if she continues crying, what are you going to do? She said, I'll get into a chemist, I'll buy a sleeping pill. That was exactly what she said. You know, so people don't interview the people, they don't check the background and everything. So it's not about a gender, it's about, you know, how you want your children to be taken care of. And what people don't know, especially in this part of the world, is that many of your households, they also have hidden agenda, and they naturally attract other domestic servants, other people like plumbers and you know, electricians. And so your child in itself, I mean, is a distraction to the house, really. So I believe that parents need to sit down and ask themselves, how do we want to run our home, and why do we really need the house help? Are there other ways we can get this done without necessarily having someone live with us? Once you can do that, I'm sure it will be fine.
Good. I agree with you, especially when the children are so young. Some of them might not even be able to express what was done to them. You know, I had a story once, and it took a while before they realized that this houseboy or whatever had been putting his, you know, private part in the mouth of this baby. And how does the baby express that this is what is being done to me when mommy goes to work and I'm all alone, you know? So it's really, really something that I want our viewers to take, you know, very, very seriously, that if you don't have a house help, you're not going to. There are other creative ways. And it bonds the family. It brings the family closer together.
Our parents give birth to 6 and 7 and 8 children, and they never use the house help. These are days where we give birth to one and two. And it's almost as if they all
3 is a crowd even. And we're like, wow. Which means the downside of it is, I mean, with house helps and all that, if care is not taken, the kids sometimes don't end up knowing how to really do basic chores in the home.
There's no way to go, because you hear discussions among, you know, ages 5 to 8 within the country, and they talk about my house girl, my house. So at the end of the day, they end up doing everything, and you're not raising your child properly. We're raising a bunch of generation who are not responsible to themselves, who don't know the basic things they need to know. And that's why I think, what I usually say to parents these days, childbearing is not compulsory. If you know you're not personally responsible for the upbringing of your child, beg God not to give a child. There's no point bringing up a child and trusting the child into the hands of another untrained child to raise your child.
Wow. There's a question here that says, I was sexually abused as a child, and I'm trying to move on with life, but the incidents keeps coming to mind and causing me depression. I'm a believer, you know, I'm a Christian, and I've been praying about it, but it keeps coming back. What can I do? I'm trying to move on.
Yeah, that's the person is expressing post-traumatic, you know. Well, it's not, usually, like I said, abuse cannot be cured, it can only be healed. However, people don't understand something that, yes, there's a place for prayer, you know, there's a place for thinking, there's a place for engaging the help of professionals as well. What a person needs, basically, I think, it's someone that can walk through the process with them. What we lack is that someone comes and say, I have this problem, you pray for the person, and you assume that it's going to end like that way. It's not going to end. The person needs, in the Western world, they call them life coaches. You know, you need someone that can walk you through. We need to understand what is causing the trauma, what's causing the depression, you know, what was the experience like. We need to understand the experience. Then, because in most cases, even the perpetrator is dead, but you just realize that people find it difficult to recover, you know, to move on, and they just think their life is still tight. So, and one other thing that usually happens is, you know, when someone has been molested, it stops growing emotionally, but keeps growing physically. So you can have a 40-year-old teenager, is 40, But at the realm of his mind is 13, you know. So you need to bridge the gap between the physical age and the emotional age, you know. So there's a lot that needs to be done. I think what a person needs to do, first of all, is to speak up. You need to be able to speak about it. I'm sure you have a lot of things internalized already. You need to get a counselor, you know, that you can let out what has gone wrong with you, you know. And I'm sure there are processes they need to take you through. There are books we would usually recommend that you read, and we need to review those books together with you. There are activities and exercises you may be asked to do, because what abuse takes away from any child is self-esteem, is confidence. Abuse steals your self-esteem. And once your esteem is stolen from you, you are more or less not a human being, really. You know, so we'll need to help the person manage the esteem part, you know, and like we always say here, when you talk about the spiritual angle, people think it's just a cliche, or you're just talking about something because you want to sound religious. You know, I believe, you know, the Bible calls something the comfort of the Holy Spirit, you know, which Holy Spirit can actually walk in you, walk through you, and make you whole again, really. And I always tell people, embrace that, you know, you know, with all the therapy that you're going to run, you know, because that's the only thing that will ultimately put you together. But also, I need to say to people that you have to understand that, you know, the abuse was not strong enough to kill you. So you need to understand that I did not kill you shows that, you know, there's more about your life. And I tell people, channel your pain. Use your story to inspire other people. You know, channel the pain into some constructive activity that, okay, it happened to me, it mustn't happen to someone else. Now, the more you talk about your experience and you use it to assist people, you realize that the more healing comes.
Wow, that is so great. That is so great. That is so true. Wow. So what you're saying is that people who have been affected, because I believe that kind of question it represents so many people, they should get all the help that they can get. They shouldn't keep quiet, get help spiritual, get also emotional, get a life coach, as well as, you know, we're here at the Real Woman Foundation. Our website is always on the screen. And just to be able to help people, Thank you.